Well, I think any planner being very dull. You know, we don't sell multi-million-pound deals and get big bonuses like that. But any planner would probably say to you that their first public inquiry, planning public inquiry, or their first local plan examination is a bit of a highlight. When you've got legal advocates on the other side, barristers with intellect above yours that are interrogating your professionalism, how expert you are, that's got to be a highlight. And the only two I could think of immediately was probably a bizarre scenario where I acted as a consultant. I acted for Brentwood Borough Council in a gypsy case, which made the press. We had Eric Pickles, Secretary of State, come down, and it was quite a big thing. And I was acting for the council against said gypsies, and that was actually really high profile. And that was my baptism of fire. And I learned so much from that process about what to do, what not to do. So there's that. But more relevant to what I do now would have to be a landowner who came to us in Hertfordshire, who had spent thousands, three-figure sums with London-based practices trying to get his site allocated for a couple of hundred homes. And it came to me, we set him a strategy. We did admittedly tell him it was a bit of a 50-50 strategy, but we embarked into that process, and from day one managed to turn around the local plan inspector to kick out neighbouring sites and to actually allocate this site, which was in the green belt, and at the time that was unheard of. And again, that made national planning press, if I can call it that. And it done me no end of favours, because certainly colleagues respected it, and a number of landowners since recognised that there was a real U-turn in that case. And can't take all the credit for it. You're as only good as your case can be, but we did manage to spin it on that occasion, and yeah, that's a highlight for me. That was quite impressive. So one of the things as planners, I mean, the big thing that came out of this government was we need to deliver more homes, and there's barriers to delivering those homes. And one of the things this government championed was viability, more so than ever before. So as a planner, we've always deferred judgment to our clients or surveyors to give guidance on where's the balance lie with how much Section 106 obligations a scheme could take, how many homes does it need to be to make this viable and deliverable. And planning guidance has really been shaped over the last five years. With the NPPF coming to force about deliverability, about viability. So it's no longer good enough for a planner to look over his shoulder and turn to said expert and say, you answer this one. You have to have a general feel for it and understanding for it. And that's something that we never did before, and that's certainly coming more and more. We're certainly by no means any expert on it, but you have to be able to understand and to demonstrate key things like deliverability, viability. So that's an area where planning, I think, has changed across the board, and you can tell by the amount of courses that people offer for become a viability expert in planning, and money for old rope, but there's a lot of that going around now, and because it's so key. SIL, Community Infrastructure Levy, it's very relevant to that, it's very relevant to affordable housing and everything else really. Yeah, so it would be very interesting to see if we leave Europe, if we start to tear up these European regulations which require things like environmental impact assessment, all of this European legislation which has really added to the volume of documents you need with planning applications, and that in turn has obviously added to the expense of putting a planning application in our clients' face, to the point where you find yourself as a consultant having a tug of war with the council. Every time you want to make a planning application with them, they give you your list and you have a tug of war with them, and you feel you've done quite well and narrowed it down until you sit down with your client and he also wants to have a tug of war and narrow it down a little bit further because there's cost involved. So one of the things that we feel across the industry is we could do with streamlining the requirements to go with a planning application, the cost, the upfront cost, it's all front loaded now. And there are things you can't do without, admittedly, but there are certain things you can leave to condition, where common sense prevails. And that's where I think there could be less volume of documents, which will be more cost efficient for the development industry, but also more time efficient for the local authority, more importantly, because they have less to wade through. They can actually get through these documents quicker, and they can get to a decision, and they can delay certain judgments for another day. So that's really a big area. Statutory consultees, you have to engage the local authority rely heavily on input from environment agencies, highway agencies, experts of their own, and all of these people are outside of the control of the local authority. So we often find that an application goes in, local authority processes it, it then gets outsourced and sent out to these statutory consultees, and they don't seem to be governed by any timetable, any timeline, any right of appeal. So that's where the system's very slow at the moment, and they need to be brought into account somewhere, somehow, where local authority gets more control of them, because that's where the delay lies. The local authority don't have the expertise in-house anymore, and they do rely on their statutory consultees, and that needs to be streamlined at how involved they are up front and how regulated they are by the same timetables that we're all governed to. I think that's another thing that could really speed up the process, because it's all about having more certainty, quicker decisions, and anything we can do to get to that would be really helpful. So I think I'm almost an advocate of Sadiq Khan here when I think that affordable housing needs to be a fixed cost on the land. There's far too much room for negotiation. So like community infrastructure levy, there's a process, but once it's fixed, it creates certainty to landowners, it creates certainty to developers. We all know what the fixed costs are on that land, and affordable housing should be no different. It needs to be a fixed cost, because I think that will make transactions for developers and landowners far smoother, and it will make negotiations in the planning application process far more simplified and speedier, and that is what's bogging down the system at the moment. If we could streamline that, that'd be a great result, I think.